Hello and welcome to the Haus College Sports Show. I am Joe. With me is Kyle, as always, here to talk about college football, recap what happened last week, preview what happens this week in Week 9. Kyle, how you doing?
I've been better. I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, we're gonna get into the reason why in a little bit here. I'm pretty sure, but someone else who's not doing well right now, Will Healy was fired at Charlotte. I don't think we're gonna get into the details of the coaching candidates for Charlotte, but just another job opening already, and it's not even November, so just a lot of action going on in the coaching market.
Yeah, kind of thought he would end up working out eventually. Just end up getting worse and worse. If I remember right, his name was coming up, a couple years ago, and thought he might, get a decent offer, and then he ends up at Charlotte and stays, and things just didn't work out. I did expect a little bit better results though. It's a little surprising, but they fired him for a reason.
Yeah, at least they beat Duke last year. That was like one of the biggest upsets, and then after that, just nothing,
Yeah,
nothing good.
yeah.
All right, well let's that's the Charlotte update, but let's go to our recap of Week 8. There was a lot of good games this weekend. We'll start off with the game that happened at noon Eastern on ABC. Clemson beat Syracuse 27-21 in a ranked matchup of unbeatens. We had DJ Uiagalelei turning the ball over, not playing well. He gets benched for Cade Klubnik, the freshman who had come in at the end of the Georgia Tech game and has played sparingly. A lot of people, Clemson fans, have wanted him to start in the past, but after the game, after Clemson got the win, Dabo says that it's still DJ's team. DJ is the starter. It makes sense because Klubnik didn't look all that good either. There were definitely some questionable calls that maybe Syracuse would have liked to have go their way, but at the end of the day, they scored 0 second half points. Sean Tucker, I think, had 5 carries for them, their star running back. That's unacceptable too. So, the complaints about the refs might be fair, but also be fair to say that they did not have their best game, especially in the second half either.
Yeah, that was a weird game. It makes me feel in a weird way a little better about Syracuse because they did fight hard and they did have that game in hand there for a while. But they just died in the second half, and credit to Clemson for making the adjustments that needed to be made. But you can't go out in the second half and just lay an egg like that. I think most of Sean Tucker's carries, I believe, came in the second half, and I think that he was the only one getting first downs for them. They only had a handful, maybe 3 or 2 in the entire second half. And they just didn't do anything in the third quarter. And I don't know, how much of that was just changing the game plan because they had a lead, or how much of that was just, like I said, Clemson stepping up to the challenge. But there was no fight. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 3 and outs. I mean, there's nothing happening offensively for Syracuse. And that just, laid the groundwork for Clemson to be able to walk through there and get the win. So you get good win. A lot of it is really just Will Shipley. But like you said, DJ had a bad game. Cade Klubnik had a bad game. And we'll see how that works out going forward because that kind of effort isn't going to work in the playoff. But, it probably gets you there.
Yeah, we thought this was going to be their last big game. I still think it's the last game where they have a shot to lose this regular season. They do still have the game against South Carolina, who's newly ranked this week, which is not something I think we had on our bingo cards for this year. So that's the only thing left on their schedule. Otherwise, it's almost like home free to the college football playoff.
I had South Carolina 8-4 to start the year,
All right.
which I don't know if that would make them ranked or not, but I did say 8-4, and that actually looks kind of possible now. They've won some I didn't expect them to win, but I also expected them to beat Arkansas, and that didn't happen. So technically I'm still online, but it wasn't the way I thought it was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if they go 8-4, I mean, I just see East is tough this year. I don't know. That's probably ranked. Yeah.
That's a great year,
Yeah.
especially because you're finishing up. I guess that's not necessarily saying you'll definitely get that win against Clemson, but if you do, I mean, you're ranked. I don't care what it is. Clemson can be a top 10 team. You're ranked. So.
And what's more impressive is Spencer Rattler still doesn't look good at all, and they're still winning games. That's awesome.
No, if he ever ends up looking like his 2020 self, they're going to be good. They're going to be very good.
Yeah, they're just kind of like biding their time until they get, whether it's him figuring it out or getting another quarterback in there in the future to kind of figure things out. But they still have Missouri and Vanderbilt on the schedule. They win those the next 2 games, and then maybe at Florida, that's 8 wins. I mean, Tennessee, Clemson will be their last 2 games, but
yeah, I mean, the finishing stretch is pretty tough, but you got to make sure you don't choke in these next 2 games. I think South Carolina has a tendency to kind of do that sometimes when they should win these games. So just don't choke. What are they, 5-2 right now?
Yes.
So then, but yeah, that puts you at 7, and all you got to do is steal one from one of the other. Those are good teams left, but you can do it. So,
Absolutely. That'll be fun little story here with I know it's a bunch of trash talk in the SEC between South Carolina and Kentucky specifically, but you know, Shane Beamer's doing little dances. He's putting on the sunglasses and stuff. A little life in the SEC East there, so that's kind of fun.
yeah.
All right, Kyle. I'll let you take this for the most part, but Ole Miss goes up early. LSU comes back, and I mentioned before the game, this is like a Jaden Daniels. Like, if we get good Jaden Daniels, LSU probably wins. If we get bad, they probably lose. And he was pretty good, so they LSU won.
It's a good recap. LSU won. Yeah, that was pretty pathetic by Ole Miss, and it's something we've seen all year. The potential of this team is top 10. I think it's a very good team potentially. Problem is, you only get about 1/4 of that potential each game. We've seen this all year now. It's the only difference between this game and the game against Kentucky, the game against Auburn, even Vanderbilt or other teams like that, is LSU has the talent to make Ole Miss pay when they just take a half off. So they started the game against Kentucky up 14-0. They started the game against Auburn up 21-0. Started the game against LSU up 17-3. And all three of those games, at one point or another, ended up being tied. I believe maybe Auburn, there was only like a smaller deficit, but it was a game in all three when all Ole Miss had to do was limit their mistakes and put the game away at that point, and they just can't do it. And so that's just the story that I'm expecting now from Ole Miss throughout the year. I thought the effort was very lackluster from most of the offense. Jackson Dart, I thought, the stat line doesn't show it. I thought he had a good day. Quinshon Judkins keeps having a terrific game every game. I mean, he's the most consistent player on the team right now. Malik Heath had a great game. But the defense is now my biggest worry. They basically let LSU do whatever they wanted all game. That was pretty brutal to watch. It was very reminiscent of some of those 2019, 2018 defenses from the bowl ban era, where there's nothing you can do. And like you said, Jaden Daniels had a huge game. You can look at his stat line and see he pretty much got to do whatever he wanted. So there's some issues for Ole Miss moving forward.
Yeah, definitely after this game. I mean, LSU has proven to they're written off for dead at the start of the year. Maybe me included, honestly, too. And totally bounced back and changed kind of what we maybe thought they were. And 6-2 now. I mean, yeah, they got like Alabama after this bye they have this week, but yeah, just totally different perception now. And as you said, Ole Miss definitely some problems to figure out, especially if they want to make a New Year's Six bowl now too. All right, in the Big 12, TCU beats Kansas State 38-28. They had to come back in this one. It was a 28-17 lead at the half for Kansas State. They don't allow second half point to Kansas State, so the Horned Frogs get the win. Interesting kind of notes about this. Kansas State did have quarterback injury issues. Adrian Martinez left the game early. Their backup, Will Howard, who actually got some playing time last year as well, he was banged up in this game as well, and that kind of really hurt the Kansas State offense. But at the end of the day, TCU found a way to come back and win a game again, and now they're 7-0, and looking like they maybe can stick around for a little bit for this college football playoff talk.
Yeah, and are you noticing a trend, Joe? All three of the first three games, the loser did not score in the second half. So adjustments were made by one team, and the other team either weren't making adjustments or just took their foot off the gas, and they're the losing team in all three situations. Yeah, it's unfortunate for Adrian Martinez, but I thought Will Howard did a good job, and like you said, he had a starting experience from last year. He's been the guy there for a while, and he has experience. It's not like you're putting a cold guy out there. And I thought he did fine. I thought he did well enough. But yeah, I mean, it stinks. I thought TCU's defense did a hell of a job, especially in the second half. Obviously, first half a little questionable, but the second half, I think it was like two turnovers, 2 3-and-outs, I think, and then like a turnover on downs. They shut the door and gave their team a chance to win in the second half, and Max Duggan and company took over and they did what they needed to do. So TCU's rolling. Yeah. Once again, feeling like 2014.
Absolutely, and there's no gimme games in the Big 12. Like, at the end of the day, Iowa State's 0-4 at the bottom of the Big 12, and they're still a solid team who plays teams close. But you think about they're probably going to beat West Virginia this week. They play on the road at West Virginia. If they want to be a playoff team, they should win that game. And then we're going to be talking about playoff talk next week more specifically, because that's when the college football playoff rankings initially come out. And that's just something, Sonny Dykes is up there in all the Coach of the Year conversations for a reason, because they're not projected to be this good this year. All right, next one up, we have Oregon beating UCLA 45-30. Bo Nix is playing well in big games. He's had some flashes of good Bo Nix, but for the most part, it's been bad Bo Nix for the last couple of years, honestly. But Oregon's kind of back. Another team we kind of maybe thought was like written off for dead after how bad they lost to Georgia. They get this big win at home. Wasn't necessarily close. They were up 31-13 at the half. And UCLA, I mean, they still have the good ground game, but I mean, maybe showing that the passing attack with Dorian Thompson-Robinson just always isn't there as much as the running game is when they had to make a comeback here.
Yeah, and they got a lot of these yardage late in the game, and that's some prevent defense. That's also some second string guys from Oregon. So I do appreciate the fight from UCLA. I'm taking it with a grain of salt, those 14 in the fourth, but good job by Oregon. Like you said, Bo Nix with one hell of a game. This might be his best game I've ever seen. I mean, he was all over the place. He was running the ball well. It was like he was playing Ole Miss out there, But he always played us well, and those were the times when he looked the best. In this game, he looked even better in those times. So good job by him. Kudos to Oregon. Very disappointing by UCLA. Like, we've been talking about the last few weeks. That was my pick to win the Pac-12, and obviously still alive, but really would have been nice to have this. I thought the offense was good enough. It was fine enough. It's not like a major issue. It's just the fact that the defense was not present at all. They didn't get off the bus. I mean, you could have an incredible offensive day from UCLA, and this game still might be lost just because of what Oregon was able to do to them. So, you regroup, you come back next week, figure out. But, good win by the Ducks.
Absolutely. I think this year might get a little bit crazy, so they might have a chance of the playoff. But at the end of the day, for Oregon, that loss is going to maybe sting them more than they hope, because you lose that bad neutral site.
Yeah.
I know it's pretty much Georgia home game, but neutral site, it's not going to look good on the resume, so they're going to need a lot of help. So we'll see.
UCLA did not force a punt until 6 minutes in the fourth quarter, something like that. So just let that sink in.
Yeah.
How do you win a game like that?
Yeah. Big 12, Oklahoma State beats Texas 41-34. Another case of a team coming back. Oklahoma State scored 14 fourth quarter points. Texas scored 3 second half points. That's what did them in. Texas was in control at the half. They could have kept on doing that, but they struggled second half. Bijan Robinson, 140 yards, 1 touchdown, but Spencer Sanders is just kind of doing enough for Oklahoma State. Like, it's just still weird to me that this team last year was so defensive minded. Jim Knowles leaves. Now they get the offense back out that wasn't there last year, and they're putting up points. And again, they're still very much alive in the Big 12. And for just talking about playoff purposes a lot more now because of where we're at. But they kind of went out here. Maybe they go up against TCU in the Big 12 championship and avenge their only loss. The committee loves when you avenge your only loss of the season, and who knows what could happen.
Yeah, and staying consistent with our theme here. One team came out, made adjustments. The other didn't. Oklahoma State finishes on a 24-3 run in the second half, and also including the final drive of the first half for them. But, Quinn Ewers didn't have a good game. They had opportunities in the second half. I mean, that's impressive. Texas was still kind of in the driver's seat for most of the second half, despite not a lot offensively. The game starts with an interception. It just kind of has – it's foreshadowing for later. You have 2 chances to win it in the final 2 drives, and you throw interceptions on both of those as well. I think it's maybe just kind of the youth coming back to bite him for now. I don't think that's a testament to a bad Texas team or anything. It's just it is what it is. Quinn Ewers is young. He's still figuring it out. And in this situation, he didn't come through. But, good win by Oklahoma State. Now you're in the driver's seat right there with TCU again, and like you said, avenging that loss and everything. So,
yeah, well, the Big 12 is going to have some big games coming up. We have a decently big game to pick here in a little bit too for Oklahoma State, so that'll be fun. The last game we'll recap from this past week. Cincinnati beats SMU 29-27, and they were almost a victim of what we've been talking about all game. They had this game wrapped up. They were up 20-14 at the half. They were up 29-14 at the end of the third quarter. And this is one of the games that was like, all right, I'll turn it off and watch some of these. Putting one of my other screens on some of the Clemson and other games going on. And SMU comes storming back in the fourth quarter, as they do with that passing attack, and make it close. But the important news here for Cincinnati is they get a win on the road against a team who has that offense, and they kind of hang on. And for the lack of a better term, they're in the driver's seat for that New Year's Six Bowl for the Group of 5. They still have to battle with Tulane, but right now they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, no, you said it right. I thought the defense managed SMU's offense pretty well. Well, you only forced one turnover, but you needed every little bit in this game, and they held them under 300 yards. And I thought that was a good job by UC's defense. I thought it was the offense that you kind of have to worry about a little bit. You let that, especially at home, you let the team hang around a little bit, hang around. It's just a 2-possession game, and eventually it comes back to bite them. And you're 2-point conversion away from going to overtime. So. UC's got to do a little bit better job. We're hitting the midpoint to the later point in the season, so you can't necessarily say, oh, it's a new group. They had a lot of pieces to replace. They're still figuring it out. You have to figure it out now. You can't let that happen again. They had a lot of that last year a little bit too, just letting some of these American teams hang around. Navy, I think Tulane might have been another one. It's these teams that they should be being able to put the go-away punch on. And they're unable to do it, and so this one ends up being a thriller. But like you said, they're in command for the New Year's Six, which is that's where you set your sights now. I don't think you're making back to a playoff game unless you run the table. You and I didn't really think that was going to happen. So, good job by the Bearcats. Come back next week again.
Yeah, and they, as you mentioned, these American teams are like sticking around. I think it might be some problems even coming up this week. They have, 3 wins in the conference so far, and they've won it by a total of 16 points in those 3 games. Is what the scoring margin is for them right now. That's not going to be good enough. They have UCF next week. They have this collision course with Tulane coming at the end of the season, which could well decide who goes to the New Year's Six, but also they might play each other back-to-back weeks, kind of in that weird American thing that happens almost every year, it seems like, where they have the teams playing in the last week and also in the championship game.
Yeah.
All right, that's the recap. Let's go to picks for this week, Kyle. We have some interesting games. Let's start it off with one of the noon Eastern games. We have Ohio State at Penn State. Penn State did not look good against Michigan, so they're trying to bounce back and get some more recognition. Ohio State, this is their first big game. I mean, Notre Dame was supposed to be big, and we see where Notre Dame is now, but this is their first really big game.
Yeah, and I'm going to treat this one like we treated the Clemson and Florida State pick last week or whatever that was. I don't take this one too seriously. I think Ohio State's going to dog walk them out of their own stadium. After watching what Penn State wasn't able to do against Michigan, I just don't have faith in them on the big stage. And Ohio State, I think, has looked better than Michigan in a lot of their games. They tripped up a little in week 1, but they've dominated since then. CJ Stroud's been great. So I expect Ohio State not to have maybe it's close early, a little bit, just kind of like the Penn State-Michigan game, but I think they pull away late, and I don't think it's that close.
Same thing. I think Ohio State's just clearly on another level than Penn State. I know that irritates Penn State fans to no end. They can still have a good season and finish with maybe even 10-2 record by the end of the season, but they're not with Ohio State, Michigan yet. That's just how it is. I think Ohio State's offense hasn't been shown to be stopped unless it was Notre Dame in that first half so far this year. Once they got everything going, they've been pretty good. They might give up some points to Penn State, so if you're a gambling man, maybe hit the over. But at the end of the day, they'll still win this one by I think around 2 touchdowns. All right, you mentioned Notre Dame a couple times there. Notre Dame at Syracuse. Syracuse now 6-1. They're favored in this game by 2.5, and honestly, I think it's because Notre Dame I can't figure out. Some weeks they play well, some weeks they play like they're the worst team in FBS.
That's kind of how I was feeling about this game. I was thinking about who I want, and if, of course, you asked me at the beginning of the year, it's a no-brainer. I'm taking Notre Dame, and here we are halfway through the season, and I still am not sure if I want to even take Syracuse. You have a tough, close one last week, and you get a little bit of a hangover from that, and you're not focused this week. Notre Dame will get you. They still have talent, but bottom line, I think I'm going to just stick with Vegas and stick with Syracuse at home. I think they should win this game. Notre Dame it's not a fluke anymore. It's kind of been proven they're just not Notre Dame of last year, the last decade. So Syracuse should win this. But like you said, if Notre Dame has one of those great games where you look and say, oh, hey, look, they figured it out. Yeah, Syracuse is going to be in trouble. They had some issues last week that got exposed by Clemson. So that could come back to bite them again this week. But overall, I think Syracuse should win.
I want Notre Dame with the upset here. They beat North Carolina on the road. They beat BYU, and I guess BYU is kind of faltering now, and that makes it a little bit worse. But they're good if they just get Michael Mayer the ball. It's so stupid, but sometimes it's about getting your best players the ball. Best tight end in the country, him and Brock Bowers. Whoever, if you want to debate which one's better, that's fine. But they're both really, really good. Throw him the ball as much as possible with Drew Pine. He will get open, especially Syracuse's defensive backs are kind of banged up right now. Some of them might be able to play in this game, but still just not 100%. And I'll take the upset. I think these teams, again, the spread is 2.5 for Syracuse. Neutral site. I'm sure that's just a pick'em game, and that's kind of where these teams are for me. All right, next one up we have Florida at Georgia. Florida versus Georgia, not at Georgia. Sorry, Jacksonville, biggest outdoor cocktail party. But we're picking this one just because of I guess Florida. Anthony Richardson could play well, Kyle, but I don't know.
This is a big spread. I was kind of confused why this wasn't on there because maybe it's just because it is the outdoor cocktail party. But yeah, I got Georgia, no question, not even close. The bigger question in this game, I think, is if the over/under is 2.5 or 3.5 turnovers for AR-15, because I think I'm taking the over either way.
Yeah, I'm taking the over. I do think Florida can stick with them a little bit longer. Georgia just has kind of shown that they've been sloppy a lot this year. I think the last 2 out of 3 games, other than the Vanderbilt game, I think was the only one where they haven't really looked that sloppy. Or was it the Auburn game? Auburn and Vanderbilt. So the last 2, last 2 out of 4 they've been bad. The last 2 they've been good. But I think Florida can keep it close for like a quarter and a half, maybe. Georgia will pull away after that. But I think the spread is pretty accurate at 22.5. Next one up, the Big 12 game I was alluding to earlier, Oklahoma State at Kansas State. The team who wins this game will be kind of in that second spot in the Big 12 to make the Big 12 championship with TCU. Kansas State's favored by 1.5. I haven't seen much injury news out of either Adrian Martinez or Will Howard so far this week.
Yeah, which is odd to me. I'd like to know a little bit more about that maybe, but at the same time, whoever you're going to get is likely going to be banged up and not 100%. And I think Oklahoma State has the eye on the prize now. They just got a big win last week, and Kansas State might be sliding a little bit. I don't know. That's a crushing loss last week, especially when you're on the road and you have them on the ropes, and then you just let it get away like that. I think I've got Oklahoma State in this one again.
I'm going Kansas State. Again, I mentioned I like them this year. If one of them is able to go, I think Adrian Martinez is questionable right now, which God knows what that means. But I think if one of Adrian Martinez or Will Howard can go, I think they can establish the run. I think obviously the wind was taken out of the sails last week when the quarterbacks went down. I think they can win this game. Big fan of Chris Kleiman and Oklahoma State. I think they're good. I just don't think they're great. So I'm going to go with the home team here. Next up, we have Illinois at Nebraska, and you might be asking why we're picking this game, and that is because the Big Ten West is still a mess and could be an opportunity for Illinois to trip up.
Did you see the scenario of getting Northwestern into the championship game?
Yeah, every single team has to go 4-5.
In a 7-way tie, it can still happen. The chances are alive. We should pick that game is what we should do.
Yeah.
But all right, Illinois is going to win this one. I don't really have much of a doubt. I think Nebraska's season is over. I think Illinois gets this one and stays in the lead in the West.
I think so too. The game we got to circle probably. Mickey Joseph's doing a great job in Nebraska, even though he made a recruiting violation by naming a recruit. Otherwise, he's doing way better than Scott Frost. But the game we got to circle is Illinois versus Purdue, which is on November 12th. That's going to be the one I think that will decide the Big Ten West. But it's so crazy. Like, Illinois could lose this week, and then everyone will be up in flames because there will be a 3-way tie at the top. So that'll be fun.
I think the game that'll decide it will be Northwestern, final one of the season.
Oh, okay.
Whatever.
All right, we mentioned Cincinnati earlier and about their quest to be a New Year's Six team this year. This game, they're on the road at UCF. UCF is favored by 1.5. UCF's played well. They did just lose a game, I think, like last week or 2 weeks ago. But overall, they were rolling.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup to me, and it was last week at ECU. Whatever, maybe it's the environment or whatever. But yeah, ECU had them easily on that one, but. I don't know. I think UCF's offense. It's not a fair comparison, but it's similar to Arkansas in Week 1. We have a mobile quarterback and a running back that can gash you for yards if you're not careful. It's a different type of dual threat. Mobile quarterback. Obviously, KJ Jefferson will run over you. J.R. Plumlee he'll just run around you. So either way, I think that's a big focus for the defense. Is they're going to need to be able to contain JRP while limiting the run game. And offensively, we spoke about it a little bit last week. You just can't disappear again. You got to keep on the gas a little bit, put the throwaway punch on there. Interesting to see UCF being favored. I think this will be a very good game. Ultimately, probably stick with the Bearcats, but this is almost a flip them for me.
Yeah, for me too. I think if Cincinnati was playing better, I would have like less doubts. But like you talked about, they're playing these American teams close, and that gives me pause when they're playing a team at UCF who has a pretty good home field advantage, and also has been playing pretty well, way better than my expectations this year. So this could be one Cincinnati slips up in, and then maybe they have to bounce back and go beat Tulane at the end of the year 2 times or something to either make the championship or to whatever they got to do to make the college football playoff. Kentucky at Tennessee. This one is going to be under the lights in Knoxville. Tennessee is wearing their blackout uniforms for this one. Tennessee's favored by 12.5. Kyle, what do you think?
I'm sorry, Joe, but I got to go Tennessee. I don't think Kentucky can do it. Kentucky's never been a good road team, and they struggled with Tennessee last year, despite having that lead and everything. And this is a better Tennessee team, obviously. So I'd love for Kentucky to win if it could happen. It'd be great. I think it's going to have to come down to the defense, obviously. You got to find a way to stop Hendon Hooker and that juggernaut of an offense they have. And Hooker's still pretty much been perfect. So this could be kind of another big game for him, another top 20, top 25 win, just to add to his Heisman campaign. So I have no reason to believe Tennessee can't get it done.
Yeah, I'm taking Tennessee too. Kentucky up and down. Will Levis injured. He's back. He's back now. I think they keep it close. I think the defense has been at times very, very good this season. And I think maybe they can slow Tennessee down. Tennessee scored 30 points, and I think I don't even know how many games straight. And Kentucky hasn't allowed more than 30 points all year. So I mean, it'd be like kind of a interesting kind of matchup there. But at the end of the day, games are won in the trenches. UK's offensive line still isn't great. They're relying on Chris Rodriguez to establish the run and kind of make his own yardage, which is not something you necessarily want to do all the time. Is have your running back be the kind of the leader of the I guess, building momentum in the offensive line. So I don't know. I think Tennessee probably wins it. I would probably take Tennessee to cover as well, 12.5. It's not very confident in this one. Doesn't mean I don't think Kentucky can bounce back and maybe still go, 8-4-ish. All right, the last game we're gonna pick this week, Kyle. We have second last one. We'll have Ole Miss at Texas A&M. Obviously, your Ole Miss Rebels bouncing back off of a loss. Texas A&M, I mean, it's getting bad. They have freshmen who are being suspended for smoking pot in the locker room. They have apparently trying to quit too. There's definitely rumors about that too. They have people entering the transfer portal. Jimbo is making comments about how they're pretty close. They're pretty close to winning these games when you got South Carolina in the other division 5-2 overall. So it's a disaster at Texas A&M right now.
Yeah, I gotta say it's been fun to watch. I tried to say Jimbo's just not all that he's hyped up to be, and here we are again. They're 3-4. I didn't even think it'd be this bad, but good lord. That being said, it's only -2 for Ole Miss in this game, and I agree with that. I think that is the correct line. It's another kind of pick 'em game, flip a coin, where anything could happen. Ole Miss is, unless they finally figure this out, they're going to have a half or 3 quarters or a few quarter, whatever it is, where they just disappear and don't play. So if Texas A&M can take advantage of that lull, it's going to be an Aggie win. So Ole Miss needs to stay focused. The defense has got to shape up. A-Chain might run for 200 if they don't. So I don't have too much worry about. I think they might be on the third string quarterback now. Whether it's Haynes King or the other guy, I don't know. We'll see. But hopefully the passing game isn't going to be as big of a deal. But you still got to worry about that strong running game. A-Chain's no joke. So I know they have offensive linemen out and they got injuries and everything, so it'll be interesting to see. But I do not feel confident with going Ole Miss, but I am going to stick with Ole Miss.
I feel very confident going Ole Miss. It just seems like it's a mess, and I don't know. Maybe for a fan like you are, I would understand why you have some reservations, but I don't know. It seems awful. For multiple reasons, Kyle. That if that oink doink doesn't happen. Think about that. Their wins would be over Sam Houston State and Miami right now, and they'd be 2-5, and they would have to basically win out at that rate to go to a bowl game. That is how bad it's gotten. I mean, yes, they're close, but as we mentioned before the season, Jimbo just refuses to update his offense. There's no motion, no pre-snap motion, there's nothing that isn't new since 2007. for offensive football and college football. It's pretty bad. So until he figures that out, it's going to be rough. And they're tied to him for a very, very long time. Like I think like 7 more years, and even in the 7th year, if they fire him now in the 7th year, they would have to owe him $20 million that year. So it's something weird like that, and it's not the situation you want to be in. They are in a, I guess, purgatory, Texas A&M. So I'm going Ole Miss, mostly because of what's going bad about Texas A&M more so than Ole Miss, but I still think Ole Miss is solid, so they'll be fine.
Did you see Lane Kiffin's comments today?
That they bought DJ Durkin too.
He said they got outbid for DJ Durkin, which seems to be the way things work down at that school or something like that, or seems to be a trend for that school.
Yeah.
And Twitter loved that. I did too. I thought that was a good little zing. I don't know if you should be poking the sleeping dragon or whatever you want to call A&M, but Lane can't help himself, and I thought that was funny. I was laughing.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like kicking someone when they're down, though, at this point. I don't even know if it's a sleeping dragon because they're just...
Good. I mean, Lane complained a lot about it all offseason, to the point where even Nick Saban was complaining about it, where they're just buying players because there's no cap, there's no regulating it. And now I think it's just kind of glowed a little bit. I mean, I get it. You know, you complain about that all season. You're facing an uphill battle, and now they're doing terrible. So, yeah, rubbed in a little bit, glowed a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Last game we're going to pick, Kyle. We have Pittsburgh and North Carolina. At North Carolina. North Carolina only lost this season is against Notre Dame. They're undefeated in the conference. This game is a pretty close spread, and obviously the winner of this game could be going to the ACC championship. North Carolina is favored by 3 points.
Yeah, and even if Pittsburgh does win, I mean, I don't think that's a guarantee whatsoever that they get to the championship. They lose the tiebreaker, which just feels weird to say, but they lose the tiebreaker with Georgia Tech. So they still have to hope Georgia Tech loses a couple more. But yeah, either way, I mean, I thought that the preseason ranking for Pittsburgh was way premature. I thought that was obviously just a Kenny Pickett hangover, and they don't have them anymore, and it's not the same team. And that's been proven this year. That it is what it is. But UNC's turned around it nicely after a couple of years of struggling, and because they started off real hot in that 2020 year, not too good last year, but now they're turning right back around, and I do think they get this win, and I think that'd be a 2-game lead then, right? They'd have to lose twice, depending on who they lose to, maybe 3 times. So UNC is starting to look like they might be finishing up business here pretty early in the season, with a 4-0 start here. So.
Yeah, Drake May is incredible for them so far this year. He's definitely a quarterback to watch in the future. I think they're going to win this game. I haven't seen enough out of Pitt. I do think Pitt maybe can keep it close because they do have some talented players on that defense. But Keaton Slovis has not been what they expected at quarterback, and that's kind of holding him back for the time being. For the Tar Heels overall, I mean, like I said, the one loss is Notre Dame. That's not the greatest, but again, Notre Dame's capable of beating teams for some reason than losing to other teams that are way worse. But I think you're looking at maybe 2 more losses overall. You got Wake Forest, November 12th. You got NC State to end the season at home. They very well could beat NC State, especially with the injured quarterback, but they're still a talented defense. So you could be looking, if you win this game, you could be looking at 9-3, which is again not something we really thought would happen. You could be looking at even better, at 10-2 record. That could be a New Year's Six bowl team, kind of close to it at least. So lots of opportunity for North Carolina. As you said, last year was not the greatest, so that'd be a really good step for Mac Brown and this program getting back. And then next year, hopefully reload around Drake May and have a chance to do some even more damage. All right, those are the picks. Kyle, any final thoughts for the week?
That's all I got. That's it.
That's it. All right, well, because Ole Miss lost, you start not having any final thoughts. All right. I got nothing either. Be exciting week of college football. I'm going to remind everyone to like, subscribe on YouTube, wherever you're getting your podcasts at. Help us out there. For now, thanks for listening. We'll see everyone next week.